I make the joke a lot of the time that Riot being based in California, they like to grab the at least 5 pounds of marijuana, put it into the air vents, and just hotbox the entire Riot HQ. In my mind, the only thing that explains why Senna's souls change every other patch is that these dudes are so high, they're so absolutely blasted off the devil's lettuce that they've gained the ability to time travel. The entire Riot HQ turned into the magic school bus. Right now they're probably like in the Crusades or something. Balancing Senna is the least of their worries.
Jinx, wait, what was Jinx? This Jinx fucking ever pick fucking Yuumi in my fucking game. I mean, Kane had fun because he had a Yuumi. But dude, 80 carries don't have fun with Yuumi.
Yuumi?
Yuumi needs to be gone.
That's a solid one. I was thinking about this one. I think I would just remove Yuumi, yeah. You can lose a lane with it, die 10 times, but if someone from your team is fed, whatever champion it is, Yuumi can just sit on him and he'll just carry the game, right?
I think it's just not a necessary concept of champion in the game.
I hate playing with Yuumi, I hate playing against it. It's just healing.
You guys, you don't have to respect what I say right now, but you have to listen to it. Please delete Yuumi from the game. Yes. Please, let's all put a petition. Let's put a petition to Riot. Let's write it. Let's send it. Let's just put a petition to Riot. Let's delete Yuumi from the game. It's anti-fun to play. It's anti-fun to play against.
He actually picked Yuumi. I don't want to play. I don't want to play. I deadass don't want to play.
Dude, just you wanna pick Yasuo with Yuumi and I'll pick give me Tristana mid into Glad. It's fine.
Why the fuck would I do that?
Because at least you'll have fun.
I won't
Pick
have
something.
fun this game. I literally won't have fun this game. Period. Wilson just decided it. Yuumi should be deleted from the game. Listen, I'm making this video knowing full well she's getting nerfed next patch. Not really knowing what they're gonna do about it, but it doesn't really matter. When you think about the history of champions that have been released up to this point, there's been a lot of ups, many downs in terms of balancing, role allocation, kit design, but there isn't one that is as much of a complete failure on all fronts as Yuumi is. I despise this champion. Yeah, making this video is part therapy for me just because I hate this champion with a passion. But Yuumi should be deleted from the game at all costs. Perks wants Yuumi deleted from the game. Reckless hates playing with Yuumi. The entire LEC apparently wants the champion deleted. So here's all the reasons why Yuumi should be deleted from the game. So the first point I want to talk about is the skill expression. Skill expression is it's what gives depth to the game. It's the reason League has lasted this long. It's because it's incredibly deep. It's not like a shooter where you can just luck into a headshot. There's a lot more nuance and slow setups and micro information that impacts the way the macro plays out. It's giving incredible depth. The problem with Yuumi is that basically on any level, Yuumi skews the game in a way that dumbs down the entire match he's played in. So I'm also going to be referencing the devlog where Riot has already addressed the community's desire to get rid of Yuumi almost tangentially because it did not age very well. So they talked about 3 main points on Yuumi from their perspective, and number 1 is, why is Yuumi a brain dead champion that even a real cat could play? I mean, that's a fair question, to which they respond with, we think this is actually a misconception. Her mastery curve is actually similar to Qiyana and Akali's. Sorry, just had to check real quick that Itachi Uchiha wasn't sitting outside my house putting me under Genjutsu or something. Because Riot actually just said, unironically, that Yuumi's skill expression is up there with Akali and Qiyana. Well, I mean, at least I have something to talk about with my therapist next week. I don't really get it. The magic school bus is back in full effect. Yuumi's learning curve is among the highest in the league. Really? See, this is the problem with judging viability by win rates. This same thing applies to builds or taking champions off role. Their viability should not be entirely derived from how many games they win or lose. Same thing with this chart of Yuumi's supposed learning curve. The fact her win rate is slower to progress, slower to go up with how many games people dedicate to her is absolutely dishonest, because the problem with Yuumi is that it doesn't actually mean they're improving. I can testify that pretty much every Yuumi up until low diamond, maybe even mid diamond, still has no idea how to play Yuumi. I see videos of challenger players still not playing optimally, and yet they're challenger. It doesn't matter because the champion does everything it needs to without ever showing an ounce of skill. The problem with Yuumi is that you could disable her entire keyboard except for E and her summoner spells, and the champion is at 80% power. There is little to no skill expression, and the little bit of it that there is literally just, oh, well, what do you know? I did an AFK. But the thing is that even if you do AFK, you're not actually losing much. Oh, if Yuumi players don't use their passive, they're leaving mana and shields on the table. Yeah, trust me, they leave it on the table. They don't care. Every single Yuumi I played with goes in the first 4 minutes of the lane, and they just take that L. And it doesn't matter. They still win the game because their heal key and they have their exhaust key. That's all Yuumi needs. I can't imagine it's an intuitive, fun champion to play, and I can tell you for certain it is not a fun champion to play with or against. I just love being an Ezreal main, so every single support player that's tired of having to actually participate to win the game goes, oh, there's an Ezreal, this is a good game for Yuumi. And so now I have to stand 20 feet from my minion wave because the enemy bot will just run at me on cooldown.
Fucking champion, Luis.
Yeah,
Fucking
then, you're right.
holy
You're
shit.
right. You're right,
Badass.
man.
Look at me,
You're right.
look at me, look at me, look at me.
Look at I learned from the best.
I love versing a Yuumi, and just knowing that no matter how hard I win the lane, the champion will just get on the jungler and be just as useful because their keyboard is functional. Riot goes, oh, you have to identify who you're attached to and you need to predict how your allies are gonna move. No, you don't, Riot. Have you guys played Yuumi in your lives? The only thinking you're doing is when should I ult and who should I exhaust. That's it. And even if they do all the extracurriculars, the difference between them and the people who just AFK is really not that much. Her so-called skill expression does not translate into impact. Huge contrast with Akali, who if she's played to a high level, she just has more impact on the game, period. Same thing with Qiyana. Yuumi's skill expression allows her to, oh, not AFK and get out of the champions and dodge and block skill shots. Oh, she can get out, auto attack, gain a shield, and even if you try to trade with her, you'd lose the trade. And also, it gives her mana so that you can continue to spam Qs in lane, which is a greatly fun and interactive ability that I really love. If I ever make a mixtape, of all the reasons why I decided to fill a tub with water, toss a toaster into it, then dolphin dive into that bitch, Gwen W would be the 13th reason why. Followed shortly by Windwall. Windwall! Windwall! Why does this ability exist in this game, man? This game is such trash! Windwall! Windwall! And then Yuumi Q, it should not be too far behind that. I despise this ability, not because it does a lot of damage or because it slows, but because being able to curve skill shots around minions is not a unique and interesting challenge. It's just cheap. It's cheap. That's it.
Don't worry, Yumi's on my way. Because you and me, we got it.
Oh my god. We've created a monster.
I can handle this. Right, Ezreal?
Oh no. I'm running.
So now we move on to topic 2, for why Yuumi should be erased from the game. And here I'm asking, what role does Yuumi play in terms of a playstyle, and whether or not that playstyle is good for the game. And now on topic 2 on Riot's devlog, it's basically them saying people like playing Yuumi, therefore she's good for the game. That's, I mean I have no doubt that a lot of people play Yuumi, but what you can't discern from these graphs is how many people like to play Yuumi simply because it's League on stupid mode. They're playing Yuumi not because Yuumi is good or she's fun, but because climbing is fun. Also, if you're answering the question, should Yuumi be in the game, is she healthy for the game, how many people enjoy the champion does not really matter. The truth of the matter is, most people already think when enchanters as a whole are meta, the game is slower, less skill expressive. The game becomes much less fun to watch and especially to play when what decides a teamfight isn't an AD carry or a mid laner or a top laner with a sick engage, but instead is decided by massive AoE healing and shielding. Yuumi is the extreme of this because the champion does literally nothing else other than heal or shield while being untargetable. She's got AoE, CC, and whoever she gets on boot gets a boost in her damage, all of which are passive, unfun, non-interactive abilities that greatly impact the game. As tanks can now not only get healing, shielding, slows attached to them, but also get increased damage, speed boosts to stick to carries with pretty much no counterplay. And again, not a lot of skill required on the Yuumi's part. You cannot at all make the argument that Yuumi is good for the game when all Yuumi is doing is passively adding healing, shielding, damage, speed boost, and CC to champions, and she never once has to click her mouse. Just passively winning the game is not indicative of a fun or competitive game. There's a reason why every single pro player hates Yuumi, because she skews the game in a way that is, as Riot loves to say, unique, but often just means cancerous. I permaban Yuumi, but not because I'm afraid the enemy is gonna play Yuumi. No, not at all. I'm afraid my team is gonna pick Yuumi. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to stand 20 feet from my minion wave because I don't have a support early levels. I'm afraid my Yuumi is going to AFK and cost me kills and pressure, and then at 15 minutes she's going to just hop on the jungler and will win the game while I sit bot getting my asshole spanked. Playing with Yuumi bot is a disgustingly miserable experience that at best the enemy picks an enchanter and we go even, or at worst they pick an engaged support and they just run you down, especially if you're not playing Ezreal. If Yuumi is in the game, there is no one that's actually happy about it. Not her AD carry, certainly not the enemy team, who know no matter how hard they shut down the Yuumi, it won't matter as long as, there's a jungler or a mid laner in the game. And I can't imagine playing Yuumi as fun when she depends so heavily on how good her teammates are in order to succeed. The champion outside of her ultimate has no autonomy. Whether she wins or loses the game is not really up to her. If she's attached to a Hecarim and he engages, sprints it down, I can't imagine Yuumi is happy with it. Technically, she was on the right person and did all the right things, and still, because her teammate inted, it turned into a 2-for-1. That's not a very good recipe for a fun and intuitive champion in a competitive game. Passively winning the game is not fun or interesting. That's the problem with enchanters as a whole. So now we move on to the third point, which is Yuumi's kit design and if it fits with the landscape of a competitive game. Riot on their devlog spoke on their biggest struggle with Yuumi is giving her sufficient counterplay. But what boggles my mind is that Riot should understand this is a fundamental problem with Yuumi's concept. She was built from the ground up with no counterplay. Riot lately has loved to put all these abilities in the game that make you untargetable, and you have to understand that those abilities literally have no counterplay. That's what they do. So when Gwen presses W against a ranged carry, there is no counterplay. And so you have an entire champion based on the idea of being untargetable, and you're stuck. The counterplay to Yuumi is technically picking Leona and Nautilus and just running at the AD carry on cooldown, but that's not actually countering Yuumi. That's just making the opposing AD carry hate their life for 30 minutes. Yuumi just leaves and hops on the jungler and she's just as effective. There is no counterplay to Yuumi. CCing her and locking her out of being untargetable is fine, but that never has to happen. Yuumi can realistically spend the entire game inside of a teammate and lose absolutely nothing. And in that case, there was actually an instance, an entire match of League of Legends where there was no counterplay for a single champion during 30 minutes of gameplay. There's no possible way you can consider that to be healthy for the game. It doesn't matter how many people like to play Yuumi. Most likely they just like how easy it is to play Yuumi. When she's meta, it creates a problem not just for the individual matches that are played, but also for the overall ranked ladder. All of these Yuumi players, because their champion is strong, become elo inflated, climbing to the higher ranks without actually being good enough for it, simply because of the nature of the champion. This brings match quality down, especially if the Yuumi players are forced to play something else in which they'd actually have to participate, which happens a lot, especially with me, because I do not allow them to play Yuumi. So if playing with Yuumi is miserable, playing against Yuumi is miserable, and I cannot imagine playing Yuumi to climb is anything but miserable. This champion simply stands as the single greatest failure the Riot team has ever released. Yuumi is a failure on absolutely every aspect of the game that's aspiring to be competitive. The conversation around Yuumi quieted down after she got gutted and engaged supports became more prominent, but with the return of enchanters it is more and more obvious how unhealthy this champion is for the overall game. And it should not matter how many people play a champion or whether they nerf it or buff it. There are 150 or something champions in this game now. And when one of them warps the game in such an unhealthy way, and more importantly an anti-fun way, that has to be addressed. And if you're just going to gut a champion and have them never be viable, then what is the point of having it in the game anyway? None of the reasons they gave 2 years ago stood up then, and they certainly don't stand up now. While I have to applaud the durability changes and say that they were welcome and the impact on just the immediate ability for me to enjoy the game was very felt, there's also a lot of these recurring mistakes being made over and over and over again. The other day, you had to patch your patch within 24 hours of releasing it. When just reading the changes, I could have told you the champions were gonna be overpowered. Gwen still needs to be addressed. Enchanters are unhealthy and anti-fun. There's the Bork and Sunfire build that's disgusting. It's time to just bite the bullet and understand that the approach you guys are taking in regards to altering long-standing systems within the game, and I've seen some of the changes coming to the Dragons here soon, you need to take that same approach and apply it to some of the problematic champions that exist right now. Yuumi, as I'm typing this, has over a 50% ban rate in Platinum Plus. In over half of the games being played in Platinum and above, people are banning Yuumi. Action is required, and again, the problem with Yuumi is fundamental. Nerfing her heal, nerfing her boost, nerfing her damage, none of that will fix the problem. Accept that Yuumi is a fundamental failure and rework her. Re-release her, whatever you have to do. Yuumi cannot exist in the game as she currently does. That's it. Roll the outro.